welcome to our closure session for the root of the lotus. And we're going to do a little bit of reflective work. So whatever you use to put your reflections down, pen, paper, tablet, whatever it is, please have those nearby. So pause and go grab those. Also, we're gonna do some seated meditation and some breathing practices. So whatever you need for all of that, gather that and have it ready. So first off, of course, we're gonna do our invocation. So finding that seat that's most comfortable for you. And drawing inward. Imagining those who have been teachers to you. Imagining the teacher or teachers that you engage with now, and imagining that teacher that lives within yourself. And holding all of those in your heart, we shall do the mantra. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. So before we begin our Om rolling, there's two things I would love to do. First, I would love to do the breathing practice together, and I want to read from a teacher named Max Strom and what he says about pranayama. He says, the first concept we need to understand is that our breath and our emotions are interrelated. We speak of them as two things, but they are really not. We all know this instinctively. We know that when we have extreme physical pain, we unconsciously, without any training, start trying to regulate deep breathing, because we know subconsciously that it helps decrease pain. And then he goes on to give the example of how women preparing for childbirth will be given breathing lessons and so forth. He says, so physical and emotional pain are both affected by the breath and can be managed or regulated with breathing techniques. So just something to consider about the importance and presence of breath with us. So I'm going to just invite you to come into your kumbhaka practice. So just a reminder, we have the inhale, and then the pause or retaining, and then the exhale, and then the pause, and we begin all again, okay? With the pause at the end, after the exhale. So I'm going to invite you to take whatever gaze feels best for you in doing this practice. And just take a few inhales and exhales. Establishing your rhythm for yourself. Now at the top of your breath, after you inhale, retaining the breath as a slight pause versus holding the breath, allowing softness in the diaphragm. You may even take a gentle swallow to encourage that softness in the throat. And then you exhale when needed. And then on the end of the exhale, at the bottom of the breath, again, just a gentle, soft holding, retention. And then just continuing to work this way for a few minutes. And take 3 more rounds of inhales and exhales with the gentle pauses. So BKS Iyengar says that yoga is a way to move towards integration. And that's what I'm really hoping you've been able to do as you've been working this class and going through the course, but also as you move out into the world. And so you'll see on your sheets, there are 2 final questions for you to consider. I wanted to read out of one of the books that was part of this readings for this course, I should say, that to me speaks to how this practice is really about looking at self for the sake of all, right? So I just want to read this. You probably have read it already, but I just wanted to put it out there. Okay, so he says, all of us have the capacity for greed, envy, anger, delusion, and so forth. And therein lies the honest reality of how the mind's habits constrict our unfolding. We witness this polarity not only in all the great spiritual traditions, but also in the characteristics of our life from day to day. We should be careful if we always approach global problems with the mentality of social engineering, assuming that personal virtue will result from a kind of radical restructuring of society, as opposed to seeing that we are the very aspects of society we want to change. So I just ask you to hold that in deep consideration, okay? So your final 2 questions, which you could do a little quick writing on if you would like, is that I'll give you we'll do about 5 minutes or so here before we go into our meditative practices, or a little bit more. It says to look back over all your reflections that you've made throughout time with the multi-lens, like Michael's point of view of how do we bring this to modern society? You know, what are the teachings that the gurus were asking us to consider, trying to use that multi-lens to look at all of it. And write your overall reflection of this journey. So hopefully you did some notes in the beginning, so you have some things to remember of where you were at and how you felt in the beginning. And now you can write some notes about where you are now and maybe look at how they're similar, how they're not similar. Especially if you plan to go into more training through moksha, to the immersion and or the teacher training, we really recommend that you do this because we will ask you to write reflections for those trainings. So that's part 1. What is the reflective process that you've been through? What are the things you see? What are the things you notice? What do you feel? Anything like that. Anything that's associated with something of change or notable difference. So go ahead and write on that for about a couple minutes. Let's start there. About another minute, and then I'm going to provide another question for you. You can always pause the video at that point if you're not quite ready to go on. So again, pausing if you need to, if you're in the middle of some thoughts. The other question probably won't be answered right now, but you could scribble a few notes. But my hope is that what you've learned in this course will serve you in the future. And so this question is associated with that. It says, how will you build intention on your path toward a yogic state of being in your daily enactments? So are there specific things that you found through this study that you know you want to bring forward into your life? Or there's things that you know you found in this study that really challenge you and you want to keep them in mind until you're ready to be able to enact them. So just take a moment or so to jot anything that comes to mind. And then again, pausing here if you still have more to reflect on at this moment. Otherwise, we're going to go into our meditative practice to close out our time together. We'll do our rolling ohms as we were, so the with the silence. And if you haven't already started to kind of glide from one sound to the next, really use this practice to have it be a So let's see if you can get it to go through, see what happens. And in the very, very beginning, I talked about dualism versus non-dualism. And you may have gotten some impressions, possibly about me, that I tend to lean more towards that non-dualistic approach, though the Yoga Sutras are pretty much written in a very dualistic approach. And so I wanted to share the writing of a man named Adyashanti, who was more of a non-dualistic teacher, and his writings and thoughts on the practice of meditation. So I wanted to share that with you. So it's a bit, so just sit back for a moment and let me read to you. He says, true meditation has no direction or goal. It is pure, wordless surrender, pure, silent prayer. All methods aiming at achieving a certain state of mind are limited, impermanent, and conditioned. Fascination with states leads only to bondage and dependency. True meditation is abundance as primordial awareness. He continues, true meditation appears in consciousness spontaneously when awareness is not being manipulated or controlled. When you first start to meditate, you notice that attention is often being held captive by focus on some object, on thoughts, bodily sensations, emotions, memories, sounds. This is because the mind is conditioned to focus and contract upon objects. Then the mind compulsively interrupts and tries to control what it is aware of, the object, in a mechanical and distorted way. It begins to draw conclusions and make assumptions according to past conditioning. In true meditation, all objects, thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, are left to their natural functioning. This means that no effort should be made to focus on, manipulate, control, or suppress any object of awareness. In true meditation, the emphasis is on being awareness, not on being aware of objects, but on resting on as primordial awareness itself. Primordial awareness is the source in which all objects arise and subside. And so he encourages us, he says, as you gently relax into awareness, into listening, the mind's compulsive contraction around objects will fade. Silence of being will come more clearly into consciousness as a welcoming to rest and abide, an attitude of open receptivity, free of any goal or anticipation, will facilitate the presence of silence and stillness to be revealed as your natural condition. So as you rest into stillness, more profoundly, awareness becomes free of the mind's compulsive control, contractions, and identifications. Awareness naturally returns its non-state of absolute unmanifest potential, the silent abyss beyond all knowing. So as you wish, join me. few deep breaths. Gently bringing your awareness back. Feeling the breath moving throughout the body. Taking whatever movements with the body you need. Slowly bring yourself back. Raising the gaze, opening the eyes. When you're ready, thank you all so much for joining us and the Root of the Lotus. We hope we see you again in the future.